Great, thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm looking out the window. I'm not quite such a nice day as it was yesterday, but it's still fairly bright out there. Thank goodness. Right, we'll get started on the Economic Growth Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday, the 10th of March, 2021. Apologies. You said we haven't had any, Sophie.
No, we haven't got any apologies to note. We're just waiting for Councillor Patel to join us.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask if you can show electronically with your hands if anybody's got any interests? No, okay. Minutes of the last meeting, is everybody happy with them? Has anybody got any comments on them? If you've got any comments, if they could raise their hands, please. If not, I'll take them as read and we will agree them. Gina.
Sorry, I wasn't.
Can you raise your hand electronically? Because
sorry, I can't get to. I didn't get there fast enough.
Okay.
Sorry. I wasn't present on the 18th of November. It crossed with the full council meeting of the district council, Cotswold District Council. I think I did appear briefly at the beginning, but I certainly wasn't there for the whole meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Gina. Right. So I take it from everybody else that you're happy with that. So we'll take that as read. Okay. Thank you. Work plan. Obviously, as this is the final committee meeting of this council term, members may wish to suggest future items for the next committee to consider. Has anybody got any items? You could raise your hand if anybody's got any items. We've already got, some work on the work plan for them, and they may want to change that anyway. So, if anybody's got anything they wish to suggest, please do so now. No. Okay. Thank you. Right. Item 6, Gloucestershire Economic Growth Joint Committee update. I think Patrick's still not here, is he?
Sorry, Chair, we've just missed out the district member feedback item.
Oh, I do apologise. It's me flicking up on this other screen and trying to watch the two. District member feedback, right, okay. Have we got any feedback from any of the local members, please? Gina.
Right. Well, what I've got as feedback is actually what would have been fed back this morning by Paul James to the joint committee this morning. But we are working on reopening the towns, supporting the hospitality. I'm just sort of abbreviating. Doing webinars to support the hospitality industry, which would be available to anybody in Gloucestershire who would like to join in, so they're not exclusively for the Cotswolds. Improving the digital businesses, the digital connection for businesses. We do it through who really do it through it's a social networking and how to improve your business through that. I do also note, I've been trying to chase up on this, that there are maybe digital grants forthcoming from GCC to support businesses expanding their digital offerings. And when I last heard was that of the 6 councils, 4 of them had approved all this and 2 we were waiting for. I have quite a few people interested in these grants, so I'd like to know where they got to. Yeah, that's really the main summing up from the Cotswolds.
Thanks, Gina. I think they said this morning that all 6 have now signed up. So I'm not quite sure who else can comment on that grant. Mike, have you got any news on that at all, please?
No, I don't have any news, but if we as officers, we could perhaps pick that up and send it around to members in due course. I'm not quite sure whether the LEP have any update, or Colin.
No. Okay. I'm not sure because my screen's covered at the moment. Who have we got from the LEP here at the moment? Can they comment, please?
I can comment, Kevin. It's Pete. Just from the point of view, I'll take that back in. I don't know exactly what the next steps are, so I'd need to check that with Dev and come back to the committee unless Sarah's able to comment.
No, just say it sounds like really great news, and we were just waiting to hear about the other two local authorities joining that, so it's great news.
Okay, and thank you very much, and welcome, Sarah. It's the first time I've seen you, sorry, and obviously Pete, it's been a while since I've seen you, so obviously that's why I missed you. Apologies. Right, okay, so anybody else with any other districts got any feedback? I know that we had a full agenda this morning with most of the districts, or basically quite a lot of them, all sort of, it shows how joined up we are, because it was all very, very similar to each other, and obviously what we're trying to offer and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it did look very promising, and it was actually quite impressive, the fact that of what we are all doing, from what we heard this morning. It certainly, we certainly weren't sitting on our laurels. It looked like we were being very proactive and very positive, all 6 districts, when we had the feedback. Simon.
Yeah, unfortunately I couldn't attend this morning's meeting, so I don't know what was reported from Stroud. But just very briefly, I hope that it was reported that planning approval was granted for the infrastructure development at Brimscombe Port, which is our big, very challenging brownfield site, and also we've given go-ahead for officers to find a partner for that. It's a very exciting development. You probably heard that we've also out to tender for a consultants for a canal corridor strategy for economic development, to actually look at the whole of the canal strategy from Brimscombe Port down to Sharpness, which I think is really important. We've been successful on the base bids for Park Homes, and we've actually got an emerging partnership between Transition Stroud and a company called CoCars to look at a potential for a electric car hire business. It's a CIC company from Exeter who are quite interested in that as another way forward to actually reduce congestion, which is quite interesting. And I mean, just the big issue, obviously, for economic development is that the local plan the revised local plan is nearing a position to be approved by an Environment Committee on the 20th of April, and then it'll go to full council on the 29th, which will set in place the way forward for that. I noticed Stephen's on there. I don't know if there's anything else that was picked up anyone wants to ask me about. I don't want to take up too much time, but okay. I think regeneration of town centres is something that's really being pushed forward as well, with footfall counters, and a lot of work with our new economic development officers being pushed forward. And I also would just like to sort of flag up and praise efforts from the private sector. Stroud Chamber of Trade is doing a brilliant job in promoting reopening of market towns, not just Stroud, and they've also got a brilliant new Facebook and website for Visit Stroud, which is it's great to see some of the private sector taking a real initiative on some of this, and that they're working very closely. Okay, yeah. I'll shut up at that point.
Okay, thank you, Simon. No, it's useful. Anybody else with any comments? No, right. Okay, if you could, sorry, Paul.
Right. Yes, I don't want to repeat what was said. I thought the session this morning was absolutely excellent. I don't know whether it's just because it's the last in the cycle, but all the districts have got lots of activity, so I won't repeat that. But I just want to pick up on one element, which is our No Child Left Behind initiative, where we've been involved in distributing laptops to people that have been donated by members of the public. The spare tablet that's been sitting around, and supporting the food bank side of things. But alongside that, there is a cultural programme trying to make sure that, apart from being sustainable and green and build back better, but to build back in a more culturally inclusive way. So trying to ensure that diversity and inclusion and equity are absolutely fundamental to the way we try and bring the town together, because I'm sure, like most of the other districts, you can look at one side of Cheltenham and see that it's green and leafy, and you look at the other side and that's possibly not the adjective you'd use. And we're trying very, very hard to make sure that we end up with one Cheltenham and not two. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul. If you and Simon could both lower your hands so it helps. Thank you. Right, anybody? No other hands have been raised, so that's fine. Great, thank you. Well, I mean, it's very good feedback, and this morning, yeah, it was very impressive on, from all the districts, what they are all doing towards, trying to make sure the economy does get back going again, and obviously with the high streets and the other things. And obviously Colin, talked about what the county are doing as well, which again was very positive. And there was Colin's going to work with the officers on the group to then make sure that we have more inclusiveness again with what we're doing. So that was very positive too. So thank you for that this morning. Right, item 6, because I don't want to pinch too much of what Patrick's going to say. Over to Patrick on Economic Growth Joint Committee's update.
There, unmuted. Yes, thank you, Chairman. The meeting this morning. Is that okay? Can you hear me? Can there be any?
Maybe turn your video off. You're buffering a bit.
Hello? Okay, is that better? There are a few connection issues. Okay, very good. Well, I'll just briefly update you on the last committee meeting joint, Gloucestershire Economic Growth Joint Committee, the last meeting of this council term, and it was a very interesting meeting, and it was lots of very interesting stuff updated to it. We started off with a presentation from Pete Carr, Director of Employment Skills at G First LEP, and he provided us with an update on the skills strategy and also on the skills portal. 4 documents have been drafted to inform and coordinate employment skills in the county and take forward the skills priorities already identified in our local industrial strategy. Pete also produced an action plan which has been developed to support the economic recovery and will be supported by members of the Gloucestershire Skills Advisory Panel, which is also coordinated by LEP and GCC to implement and implemented by partner organisations. An update was also provided on the skills portal. As I said, there have been 2,500 new users since launch, and the portal includes the new Careers Coach Gloucestershire tool. The committee finally endorsed for district economic development skills leads to feed main employment and skills needs and proposals into the skills strategy development, and to the district representatives on Gloucestershire Skills Advisory Panel to keep the work going forward. Pete gave us a very interesting demonstration on the skills portal, and I would advise everybody to actually have a little look at that. It will be an excellent tool, and I think it's something we should be promoting strongly. We then had a presentation on the impact of Brexit in Gloucestershire. Matt Rigby of the Growth Hub and Sarah Danson of G First LEP provided the committee with a presentation on the activities and findings of the Growth Hub's EU exit outreach project within Gloucestershire. The work of the project included advisors contacting businesses to provide support and advice, and a report of project activity and business preparedness, issues, challenges and opportunities is reported weekly. The team are also supporting MBA students studying international business at the University of Gloucester, and this was interesting fact. They should have been abroad for part of their courses, but of course that has been affected by COVID, so they've been doing a lot of work online, as most of the rest of us are. It is understood that there is currently no funding for this project beyond the end of March this year. However, the phase plans for the EU exit mean that businesses are likely to require ongoing support until at least the end of the year, and I think we are all cognizant of that. It was recognised that this could present LEPs as growth hubs with a resource challenge, but I think it's probably one they'll need to have a look at. And I think that work is going to be important going forward. We then had Gloucestershire COVID-19 Economic Recovery Planning Update, and Colin Chick provided an update on the GCC Economic Recovery Plan. And in particular, the ambition was for the innovation labs to be rolled out across the districts by the end of the next financial year, or ideally before Christmas, if we can, and the first of which will be in Gloucestershire. Work is underway to develop an economic dashboard based on the latest economic data, so that we can monitor the recovery. And the committee noted that the nomination for the Fusion project, if successful, would be a game changer for the county. And I think if you've, I hope you've all heard about this, a fantastic project that really would be, as Colin said, a game changer for the county. This would, if we were to get it, this would bring in billions and billions of pounds of investment and put us right at the very front, up front and centre of fusion power, which Colin described as clean, green and safe, which is exactly what fusion is all about. So that was fantastic. We also then had a little update from each of the districts to the committee on the work that they're carrying out in their local areas to promote and support the recovery. And I think that was a very, very interesting set of presentations. There's lots of similar types of projects and work going on across the districts. And it really did show the amount of effort that's going in to really prepare ourselves to help with the recovery from COVID. One thing I would like to kind of stress was the need that we make sure that we maximise the advertising, if you like, and communications of what we're doing and what's available. Certainly as we start to come further into the unlock and people start coming off furlough, and we really start to see the impacts of the COVID pandemic on the economy. Dev Chakraborty gave us an update on the G1st LEP. All districts have managed to commit in principle for the pooling of funds for the discretionary grant schemes. So that was a kind of a key part. The LEP has also offered its support, help and support to local authorities at whatever level they wished following the Chancellor's budget announcements. So again, it's a great sign of us working as a county together to take what we can and work together to actually get us on the right footing for the future. Andrew then gave us an update on the business rates pool. This was and the estimated position for the SEDEF fund for 2020 to 21 is £744,000. And the forecast gain for the pool for 21-22 is £3 million, with £600,000 gain to the SEDEF fund as well. We then discussed the forward plan, and a couple of things were added to the June one. One was an update on the skills strategy again, so I think from Pete Carr. And again, this is to help us as we're getting further through lockdown. The timing seems good about making sure that we're all coordinated and working together. We also talked about putting on the tourism strategy, because again, that'd be very important for our hospitality sector in particular going forward. And it was a request to get a presentation from the Western Gateway, which I think would be very important to bring in these wider partners and bodies, so we can understand fully where we as Gloucestershire sit within them. I think that was possibly the main highlights, Chair. Happy to answer any questions.
Thanks for that. Very informative, Patrick, and it was a very good meeting this morning. Just very quickly before I go to questions, there was something that was suggested this morning by one of the chief execs that it would be worth Scrutiny having a look at it. I can't for the life of me now remember what it was. I wrote it down, but I can't even find where I've written it down. Can you remember, or Mike or anybody else remember what it was? I'm sure we'll pick it up anyway, but it was just something I can't honestly remember, and I'm just looking at others to try and remember, please.
I'm not sure. It was a specific item to go to your scrutiny committee. Is that your recollection?
It was just, I think it was John McGinty that suggested it. He suggested that it would be worth something that Scrutiny would pick up as well, and I can't remember what it was. It was one of the presentations that we had. But anyway, I think we will end up picking it up anyway because it was a suggestion, so it'll be on the minutes anyway. So that'll be worth. We'll do that anyway. I was just going to bring it to the committee's attention, but unfortunately, my brain and the sieve that it is. Okay, Gina, you wanted to comment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. All I wanted to say is I wonder if it's possible to have a short synopsis of that meeting. It sounds that it had a lot of very valuable information in it.
Well, of course, there will be the minutes of the meeting that'll come through. I'm sure Laura has produced the brief briefing notes now that I'm sure we could add to the minutes as well, Laura. So.
Chair, it's also available on YouTube, so you can actually watch the full meeting.
Yeah.
Well, yes, that was why I was mentioning the word synopsis. It's it's wonderful, but one has quite a lot of meetings. And it's sometimes useful to have something in a shortened form.
Okay. There are several ways in which, Gina, that you will be able to, obviously there's briefing minutes for this one. There are then the full minutes, and there is also YouTube. So I'm sure you can pick up something from it. And on YouTube, you can fast forward a little bit as well. Okay. Trying to see if there's any other people with their hands raised. I don't think so. So I think that's you done.
Yeah, I've got my hand up.
Brian, yes. So I can't see everybody's face because when I have the electronic hands up, it covers people's screen.
Okay. Do you want me to come next?
Yes, please.
Okay, thanks. Just on that last point about the meeting. I've watched a good chunk of the meeting this morning, but it's quite difficult when you've got a meeting sort of running almost back to back. It must be difficult for Patrick. He sort of probably had that chance to have a cup of tea between the meetings. So it would be probably sensible going forward that the meetings aren't sort of done back to back, because that would allow people to digest the meeting and come along prepared and having seen it all. Because I think it's quite difficult when it's literally starts minutes after the previous one finished almost. My 2 points from this morning. One was on the Brexit preparedness. And I was quite surprised, given the seriousness of the what was reported, that businesses aren't really prepared, and that a lot of support once they engaged, they were looking for quite a lot of support, and that the funding was running out sort of at the end of this month. That there wasn't more questions from the committee, and actually a decision to actually do something about it. Because to me, if we've got businesses, I think potentially with sort of impacts of 10 or 20% onto their to their business, not being prepared and having sort of put off dealing with it because of COVID issues, which are more higher priority, we've got a big problem down the line, or maybe just around the corner. And I just thought the committee should be picking that up, or at least directing somebody else to pick it up. The second point that I picked up this morning, there was an ask from Colin on the, I think it was social inclusion employment, which was a very good idea that seemed to be coming forward, but we didn't have a lot of it. Well, you didn't have a lot of information on it, and there was an ask for the districts to commit resource, and it just felt to me like the districts, resource in districts is quite rare. Just say that we don't have a lot of people around, able to expand what they do. And I just thought that although that ask probably wasn't that great, it wasn't presented that well. And I think for districts to be able to have responded to it, they either should have had a prior advice of what was coming, or perhaps should have had a briefing paper, because one of the things that was missing in that what was presented to us, the idea was good, the intention was good, but I don't think we had any surety that it was going to make a difference. And of course, it's all very good to be taking on good initiatives, but if they don't work, they have no value. So I think I would have liked to have seen the committee being more questioning about where this was really going to deliver, as to whether the idea itself was a good idea, which I think we all agree with. So those are my points.
Okay, thank you for that. Right, I'm going to answer your first question, then I'm going to go to other people. I've got Colin who's going to indicate. I'll come to you in a second, Colin, and I'll obviously go to Patrick for another answer to a question. The first one about the meetings following on each other. Yes, that is something that we've considered and looked at. Obviously, it's not now for us to decide on that, because obviously the next committee may well want to decide, and whoever's chair or whoever's on the committee may want to decide how they want to format it, and they can change it as they wish. The only reason why sometimes it follows on from each other is because it then only ties up one day rather than tying up 2 days for people, from who are at work. So obviously, they can take a day out from work and go to 2 meetings rather than take 2 days almost out from work, and so it ruins their day. But that was one of the other reasons why it fell on one day. But that's for the next committee maybe to debate and look at, Brian. Colin, you were going to answer one question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It isn't a resource, it's a contact. It's a conduit to get into the council, so there's a direct access in. It's really difficult at times being the county. We're going to deliver this. We're going to drive this forward because it's the right thing to do. Can I tell you whether it's a great idea or not? No, because no great idea is ever a great idea until you've actually implemented it and it works and it's happening. But, I think it's got all the basics there in terms of what we're trying to do to drive that inclusivity agenda forward. And like I said, we will be doing it. What we obviously want to do is make sure that the districts are involved and they can feed into it. And we've got a contact to enable them to know what's going on. And feedback to us, which is what the districts are always asking for. And that's all I was asking for, not for any specific amount of work to be done, or the amount of work you want to put in will follow later when we see how well the project is going and whether and how much you wish to be involved. This is really just setting the scene, moving it forward. The reason you've not got a paper is literally I got the paragraph about a week ago. And I spoke to Patrick and said to Patrick, I either leave it 3 months and we lose momentum, or I keep it moving. And I decided that on the back of the fact that there's a skills report from Pete, I was doing a report on economic recovery. I thought it was only right to then raise that this morning to give everyone opportunity to know what's coming. You probably won't start really gaining any momentum till June. But what I didn't want to do is not start till June and end up waiting until September, because as we all know, as we're coming out of lockdown, recovery is going to be incredibly important. And those people who are most likely to be left behind, are those people who probably are disadvantaged most in society because they're disabled or they haven't got access easy from skills or work. So this actually helps overcome those issues. It is about inclusivity, and therefore I felt it was incredibly important to move that forward at the same speed as moving everything else forward. So I'm sorry if you felt we trod on toes or it was a little bit quick, but sometimes in this world, I don't actually always agree with process and procedure can really halt and actually thwart real positive progress, which is something we need to do in this area and need to move quickly as we come out of lockdown. So we will bring back more detail as I give later reports to you, all of you at Economic at GJEC. And bring you up to speed what's going on. But this is really, really early days, and it was about just moving it forward as quickly as possible to get that momentum.
Yeah, I understand. You were going to bring that to the senior officers as well to talk about and work it through as well, weren't you? I think that was one of the outcomes that came from what you said this morning.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Patrick, did you want to answer Brian's?
Yeah. Well, briefly, Colin's answered the thing about the ask of the districts. Timing of committee meetings. There's always been a bit of a debate as to the whys and wherefores. And maybe that is something for the new committees to revisit in June. and the Exit EU project. I mean, that is something I think the LEP are going to have to look at closely, and maybe is Dev on the call today, but maybe David might want to say something about that. But I mean, that is a concern, that does seem to be a lot of people out there who still need a lot of help, and funding for a project seems to be winding up just when we're coming out of COVID, and effectively people will be able to open up more anyway, and hopefully, and that's when they will need as much help as possible.
Yeah, I'm not sure Dave's on the call yet. I know he's going to be joining.
Yeah, sorry I was delayed. I was caught on another call, and I missed the question about EU exit, but I can kind of assume what it was. It came up in our board meeting a couple of weeks ago for the LEP. So the funding does run out at the end of the month. The team that have been doing the work have got some really good results, some really good data in, and there are clearly still some huge gaps in some of the technical details that go around being able to trade with the EU at the moment, and that's causing real problems for the businesses that we're reaching out to. So my colleague Sarah Dance is on the call, who oversees our growth hubs, and she oversees the EU exit team as well. So she'll be able to give more details if it's required in this meeting. But we are talking to government nationally about the need to continue this resource at least until the summer, because the problems, there are still new problems coming through to the businesses that we're talking to. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Kate, you've waited patiently. Thank you. Your questions.
Yeah, thank you. I will address the timing of meetings first. Which, whilst we're in this format where you can watch online on YouTube, I think there's a strong case for separating the meetings. It swings the other way if that's not going to be the case. So if the joint committee continues to be broadcast, then I think there's more flexibility for a future committee, and certainly that is there's a greater opportunity, I think, for members to watch actually if it is broadcast. And there's no current plans to change the legislation, so we'll be back to meeting in person, or those of you who are members will be back to meeting in person after May. The second point is around this sort of talks about this social mobility, inclusivity, levelling up, all of those things. And certainly I welcome that we do that work and we work with districts, but I think that work has to go beyond districts. And we had the presentation from the Power of Three about economic development in Coney Hill and Matson, and that model of economic development where it goes down to that community level and really understands and gets into what communities needs, and get those groups working together and sharing information and supporting each other. I think the county supporting that and the joint committee supporting that will reap benefits, because it's easy to pour money into the top and not much of it filter through to the bottom. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Obviously, I don't know if anybody wants to answer that, or if that, obviously, you're just making a point and you'd like to see that it was taking on. If you could lower your hand, Kate. I can't see anybody else wanting to ask questions.
Pete Carr was looking to come in.
Sorry, Pete.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, Kevin. Just to say, Kate. I mean, I think that example that you talked about in Matson and Bodsmead was actually really relevant, because I think the work there, it was a good example where obviously Mark Gale and colleagues were leading the work from a community perspective, but it's firmly involved because it needed to involve public health and economic development. I think it was a really good example of actually coming together in a short time scale to support the bid. So I think the more that we could do on that, the better, really.
Okay, sorry, it's just when I put my screen up to see whether the hands are shown or not, I then cover half the screen. So unfortunately, I can't see you waving your hands if you're not on the screen. Right, okay, and there are no more hands raised, and I'll just...
Chair, I've got Mike Dawson and Steve as well.
I can't see raised hands, sorry.
Do you want me to just go, Chair?
Yeah.
Okay, I was really just following up on the EU exit work, which you've already had comment from David on. But just to add to that, we did pick that up this morning, and we did say that as officers we would work with the LEP to see what can be done to support that work and see if there's anything that we can pull together between the LEP and the local authorities to keep that work going. The one thing that did well, I don't know whether it surprised me or not, but there's a lot of blissful ignorance in a lot of businesses out there at the moment who have not yet hit problems, and once they do, they then start to ask questions and need help and support from the LEP and the growth hubs and others. So I think that piece of work is worthy of keeping going, and I we'll talk to the LEP on how best we can do that. It's a matter of urgency. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Mike. Who else did you say wanted to speak? Sorry, Sophie.
Steve Mawson as well.
Steve, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Mine's just about the timing of the meetings and the digital bit. I think we are very keen in supporting as much as possible to keep the digital element of the meetings, and we're working very close with MHCLG, who are also very keen on that. So I do know that hopefully that position will change fairly quickly when the legislation runs out in May. And I think we should also push ourselves to keep the digital recording and the wider publication, so that we can get as much engagement from both this and the main meeting as possible. And in that way, then we can facilitate moving scrutiny to a separate day from the main meeting. So I'm hoping that we will be able to facilitate that going forward, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. And obviously, like I say, that will be a discussion to be had after May, and then obviously we can see how it works, because obviously that's when the legislation runs out as well. So it'll depend on how that moves forward, because I'm not sure whether we've had a steer on when the legislation does stop, how we then all meet, or how we can't meet, or whatever. So yeah, that'll be an interesting one. Right, okay, I can't see anybody else indicating to speak, so I will now move on to, I think it's over to Pete for your update on the skills agenda, Pete.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Can everyone see the slides I'm just presenting? They are in your pack, but just to make sure. Yeah, great. Thanks for the thumbs up on that one, Sophie. Okay, I was asked to update on a few things this time around. First of all, just to give you a bit of an overview of the employment and skills angles to the support for the economic recovery. And then in particular, you'd asked about particular activities that were more focused on young people, and similarly activities more focused on over 50s. So firmly sitting in that second camp, hopefully should be able to give you a bit of an update. What I've also included, you've got this presentation in your pack, but also Sophie's kindly included the Employment and Skills Action Plan as well, and I'll just refer to that briefly during the presentation. The reason for including that is just because there's a lot of activity going on, as was sort of very clear from all of the districts, both just now and from this morning's meeting. Lots of work streams going on, lots of really positive work going towards economic recovery. So it was really an attempt by me just to sort of pull together some of the work that's going on that we're doing. The action plan you'll see is effectively pulling together 4 main work streams. These are what we've actually agreed with the joint, with the Gloucestershire Skills Advisory Panel members. And the idea is very much to actually pull together a lot of information, signposting for people, so that it's actually easy to find that information and the support that they need. Whether that's somebody being faced with redundancy, or questioning whether what's going to happen to them at the end of furlough, or whether they're actually needing to move into a different sector, which is increasingly the case for some people in the county. So there's a whole work stream going on that, and that links back to the work that we've already flagged around the skills portal and bringing that information about local and national support together. Ongoing work around apprenticeships, and that obviously has got a longer term bearing as well post-COVID. As you'd expect, a lot of work focused around unemployment redundancy support, which I'll come on to in a moment. And then similarly, again, work that builds on the digital cyber skills aspects, right the way through from basic digital skills to be able to access services online, and as we all are increasingly using online communication as part of the day-to-day, right through to my highly technical explanation of cyber geek territory, which is basically looking at some very specialised coding and other skills. The action plan, as I say, please, if anyone's got any particular questions on the action plan, I'm happy to take those as part of today's Q&A or to follow up if you've got queries after that. But as I say, you've got a copy of that, but I'm not planning to go into it in huge detail today. Before I talk more about the work with young people and people over 50, I just wanted to flag the overall position. Gloucestershire County Council, G1st LEP, and quite a wide range of other stakeholders are working, very closely together on this. Just to emphasise, what you know already, and actually I think it is working well in Gloucestershire, is just that collaboration between quite a few different stakeholders. No one organisation can move the whole skills agenda on its own, and it's really important that we try and coordinate that as much as possible and collaborate as much as possible on that. So I did just want to flag with you that there is now within the GCC recovery strategy and action plan, a part of that is very much around employment and skills actions, and there's now a subgroup that's set up and operating that's actually coordinating quite a few elements of that, whether that's around the innovation labs going into the libraries, or whether it's about inclusive employment that Brian and Colin and others were talking about earlier. It's really looking at how we bring that together and coordinate that. And the really good news is that Gloucestershire County Council have just put £100,000 into that work to coordinate that work. And Steve Mawson, who I know is on this call, has been able to lever a similar amount of money from the clinical commissioning group as well. So the idea is very much that we've actually got some initial core funding there to work on this coordination and bring what can be quite disparate elements of work together. I think the other thing I just wanted to flag as part of this is one of the initial priorities alongside that coordination work is around social value and sustainable procurement. It's something I know that quite a few of the districts you've made good progress on already. I think that the consensus is basically we've got a lot of large contracts going out through district councils, through the county council and through other organisations locally, such as the universities. And it would be really sensible to maximise the employment and skills benefits of that, as well as the economic benefits, etc., from that. So there's a real focus at the moment on social value that Colin's been driving forward within GCC, and I think it's got some really good traction now. So again, it makes absolute sense with those contracts coming down the line to be able to build in apprenticeship requirements, to build in skills and training requirements, and it's something I'll come into again in a second. So in terms of where we are with work stream that's focused with young people, I think the main things just to flag with you, we've now launched the Careers Hub in Gloucestershire. That was launched in November. It's actually being managed within G1st LEP by a team of 5. They're actually working then with a network of what we call enterprise advisors, who are business people working with the schools and colleges to actually help them develop their career strategies and actually make their connections with local businesses and local employers. As you can imagine, COVID has had a big impact on that, not least because a lot of the schools are struggling to engage with us on some of that work, and it's quite understandably being pushed down the priority list by some schools. Others have actually been very positive about it and actually moved a lot of that forward and used the work that we're starting to do more of around virtual work encounters and virtual work experience to good effect. So, for example, the team developed a really good relationship with Sky News and have actually run a recent event to have that offered to Gloucestershire schools so that they can understand more about the careers involved in that particular business. And that's something that wasn't that was developed by a relationship from our team as opposed to something that was happening nationally anyway. I think the key things for me on this are just to sort of make you aware that this is working across all the alternative provision settings and the special schools, as well as the mainstream schools. So it's from our perspective, it's really important. Going back to Kate's point earlier, I think it's really important that this is inclusive, and that's something we're keen to continue. Within this, and also with the over 50s work stream, if you like, one of the fundamentals for me is actually having good labour market information to underpin it. And what I thank you very much, Patrick, for the trailer earlier. I would recommend that you do have a look at the link there to Careers Coach. I'm not going to demo it this afternoon, but basically it's a way of pulling together careers information and live job vacancies so that people can understand more about a potential job and career and where that might take them, and then they can link directly to what job opportunities are available in Gloucestershire. And that scrapes together a lot of job opportunities that are available online. I think beyond that, we are doing some employment initiatives work particularly with Job Centre Plus. Sorry, accidentally clicked forward that. Particularly the Kickstart initiative, which despite some frustrations is now just gone live. The initial opportunities are there for 16 to 24-year-olds. And we're also doing some work with youth hubs, as I know a couple of the districts, particularly Gloucester are. And then the other things that we're developing really, again, it came up in the meeting this morning, but construction and sustainable construction, there's an awful lot going on in the county that, again, it makes sense to maximise the jobs and the skills opportunities from. I've put some examples there in terms of Gloucester and Cheltenham, but obviously there are others going on across the county that you'll be well aware of. And again, I think it's really just being able to support the district teams on this work and also share good practice so that, for example, some of the work that's going into the Forum Academy in Gloucester is shared with colleagues in the Cheltenham Economic Recovery Task Force, so that to support the Golden Valley development, so that we're not just reinventing the wheel each time. Cyber and digital, again, you'll be aware that there's an awful lot of work going on in the county on that. So we're doing some work, particularly obviously with the universities, about expanding higher education provision, both with Gloucestershire College, who are partnered with UE, and University of Gloucestershire. They're both expanding their HE provision. Again, work in schools. Those of you in Cotswolds will be well aware of the excellent work that Cirencester College are doing to develop their digital skills centre. They're also embedding digital skills in their curriculum, right through their curriculum, and putting themselves in, I think, in a very good place. Institutes of Technology, again, we've been supporting the 2 institutes of technology that are happening in the county, and also working with CINAM, the cyber employers group, mainly based around Cheltenham, but county-wide. The last 2, really just to flag with you on this, one of my personal big concerns about the impact of the economic downturn is really the impact on young people who are now being classified as either at risk of becoming NEET, not in education or employment or training, or who already have opted out. So just to make you aware, we do have an existing, our final ESF funded project is being managed by Prospect Training Services. And we're really keen to make sure that supports as many young people in the county as possible. But as you can imagine, the combination of schools being closed, shift to online learning, the points that Brian was making earlier about not having access to laptops and digital skills, it's causing a lot of young people to opt out, and it's putting them really at risk. And then linked to that, Child Friendly Gloucestershire, I know quite a few of you are involved with that initiative, and that's now, I think, getting some real traction, and there's a work stream that we're leading on that, around that transition to work for young people and potentially transition to further education and higher education. Moving on to the wrinklies such as myself, the skills portal, again, I've just obviously we've flagged that with the joint committee and with this committee previously. That's now fully operational, and we're adding to that all the time. Basically, do please have a look at that, and it's, as I say, an attempt to bring together the local and national support available for people on employment and skills initiatives and careers. So the idea is that is a central place for people to access that information. As I said earlier, we've added now the careers coach to that. We've added links to things like Gloss Jobs. There's a number of things that we're keen to keep adding to here. So if anyone does have particular things that, or particular local community groups who are providing similar sort of support, we're very happy to promote them and make them visible on that site as well. That's an initiative that, again, has been funded by County Council, being managed by the LEP, and to my mind is, it's been a really helpful additional resource. Redundancy task force, the stark reality is that I think, obviously that we are aware of a number of businesses in the county either consulting on redundancies or actually making redundancies. We also know, obviously, with the furlough scheme extended, that there is likely to be a further upturn in the number of people being made redundant when furlough does end. So what we've been doing is pulling together a redundancy task force, including those partners there and others, really just to work together, partly to identify people at risk early on, and then to get that support in place as soon as possible. And I'd just like to thank the economic development leads in the district on that as key partners in this, and the Growth Hub partners, because they've been really helpful in working through some of that support. Employment initiatives for the age group here. Vicky Walters and I particularly have been working on the work around Restart. So that's going to be the main employment support for adults. Come the summer, it's going to be up and running. And what we've been doing is trying to work with the potential prime contractors to position Gloucestershire so they really understand what's needed, because the client group through the COVID situation has changed massively. So as you probably appreciate, a lot of the support that's needed now is actually for skilled experienced workers whose sectors have actually taken a hit, or their employers have taken a hit, and they're having to pivot into a very different sector, and that requires different support, different information, different skills to actually work with them. And then similarly, sector-based initiatives, we're trying to work with DWP and our employer groups and others, just to look at specific routes into employment. Listed a few of them there that we're developing at the moment, but the idea again is very much what I've just said around the SWAPS program, the sector-based work academy program, is about giving people a taster of what the work in a different sector is, or a new sector is, hearing directly from the employers and getting some training as part of that. And that sort of brings me to sort of where we are at the moment. But so I'm conscious there'll probably be quite a few questions, because I've done that as a rattle through. So happy to stop sharing my screen and take any questions. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pete, for that. It was informative this morning, and obviously to re-listen to it again, I picked up other bits that I didn't pick up this morning. So yes, it is useful. Right, so we got any questions for Pete, please? Kate.
Oh, that was quick. I thought someone else might have got in before me, but no, thank you for that. It really is an interesting look at across the picture. But seeing some of the things we heard earlier today and last time we met about social mobility, etc., I'd like to ask questions around the work streams focused on young people, and really this emerging evidence that it's at the transition to secondary school at 11 we're seeing entrenched disadvantage, and that the decisions made then really affect our young people's access to the right skills and education. And if you look, just a couple of examples I'm recently looking at in Gloucester City, Gloucester Academy in my own division has almost 50% of its young people in receipt of pupil premium, and the Cripps School, which has an entry criteria which does prioritise young people on pupil premium if they've passed the selective test, only has 6.5% of its students on pupil premium. And I think that's an example of where decisions being made, whether they're by schools or by parents or by young people themselves, are actually driving them into pathways where they're not necessarily aware of the impact later on what those choices will have on their future careers and prospects. And is there something, I'm not suggesting that the LEP can do this because they probably can't, but is there something that we as a county should be doing about those choices at that point that would make a real difference when it comes to that as the Prime Minister likes to call it, levelling up agenda?
I think it's a really good question, Kate. I think it is a systemic issue, absolutely. It's not down to sort of individual schools or individual careers leads to completely change that. I think it's a slow burn change, that one. I mean, I think the work that's going on as part of Child Friendly Gloucestershire will really help with that. And if it's useful, I'm happy to. I've just written a discussion paper for that. I'm very happy to forward that to you, because it's highlighting some of the points that you've made. And I think that the idea of that is to stimulate some further discussion around exactly what actions could be taken by whom to actually deal with some of that. I think the other thing is very much that support that we're trying to provide through the Careers Hub. So interestingly, one of the first Gatsby benchmark that they're looking at is around the quality of the career strategy. And one of the things that we're seeing with some schools is that they are not offering the range of opportunities to young people. We know that's impacted by some schools having very small sixth forms as well. So it's trying to get the quality of that that careers support in place in schools, and make sure that that's really driven forward, I think, is a key bit of it. And things like the careers coach tool, the initial soundings from the schools that we've discussed that with has been good, because it's genuinely providing some more open advice and guidance to people. But I completely agree, it's not a straightforward answer. I think there's a number of elements to it, but I'll send you what my initial thinking on that, and if you've got any additions to that would be great to hear.
Yeah, thank you. I think just briefly come back, Chair.
Yeah.
I mean, slow burn, I think, underestimates how serious and how long this problem is. I recall this issue being an issue when my soon-to-be 28-year-old son, who sat 2 doors away from me in this house, was making his decision about which school to go to. And, friends of mine with older children, what really concerns me, it seems to have got worse, not better. So there's that factor. And I think also the thing about careers advice and so forth, it's as much about social access to opportunity. So, people who can get the right kind of work experience for their children, as opposed to schools trying to find places where they don't necessarily have the contacts. I think that's really difficult. And thinking about things we can do as a county council, and again, I'm not going to criticise any individuals, but every time we have a work experience young person in the county council, it seems to have gone to particular schools and come from particular backgrounds. And I would say that as an organisation, and I send challenge to the LEP, I suppose, that those opportunities should be very much targeted at some of our most disadvantaged young people, so they actually do get the opportunity to see outside their slightly more narrow social circle. And maybe those young people who get those opportunities should be doing some voluntary work in our communities and seeing the other side of the coin. That's my 2 pence.
Okay, I think Pete was nodding with you there, so I think he's already commented. So, but yes, very valid point. Ben.
Chair, a couple of questions for Pete. Thanks, Pete, for the presentation. You mentioned on the slide on young people, you mentioned youth hubs. I'd be interested just for you to explain what that is, what they are, even giving away my own education there. Also the ESF funding around the NEAT project. I don't know what the nature of the ESF funding, whether that's tied to Brexit at all, whether that's likely to be under threat. I know that's been fairly, when I say fairly, I mean pretty long standing, that NEAT work the prospects have done. And I think funded through ESF for a long time, so I'd be interested to hear that.
Pete.
Thanks, Ben. First of all, the youth hubs, I think that essentially they are not kind of one specific thing at the moment, and that's not me trying to do weasel words. It's an initiative that's being developed by Department of Work and Pensions and Job Centre Plus locally. What they're trying to do is actually deal with partly, with some of the issues around the support that young people need, linking back to the points that Kate's just made, but also just from the point of view of mental health and just needing some support at the moment. So youth hubs are slightly different beasts in different places. The idea is very much, I think, there's discussions underway to actually work with organisations like Young Gloucestershire and Gloucester City Council. I know are involved in some developments for a youth hub in Gloucester. I think it's the same for Mike and Katie and colleagues in Tewkesbury. The idea of actually having a physical location where young people can get the support that they need in a sort of a one-stop shop type approach. But it's still kind of quite embryonic at the moment, Ben, to be honest. I think that the discussions as to exactly what the offers are going to be are still being worked up. But I'm happy as we get more detail to feed more into this committee and let you know. And then there's your second point about the NEAT project. it's the last. There are two current projects in the county that are still being ESF funded, European Social Fund funding. And so one is the GEM project that I know all of you are aware of, the Extra Mile project, and this is the other main one. And the idea is very much that they have been working with schools to try and get referrals for young people who are at risk of becoming NEET, and then supporting them. But we're in that catch-22 situation of, because the schools have been closed, they haven't been able to go in and work with them on school premises or near the schools, and people have been opting out of online learning. So and we know online learning doesn't work very well with NEETs by and large. So we've been in a bit of a catch-22 situation. In terms of the impact of EU exit, yes, the funding will end. At the moment, we're just discussing with DWP about whether we can actually get a funding extension to 2023. But at the moment, it's looking like this project will be able to go on that long. So at least we'll be able to continue to work on it. But it's trying to overcome the COVID challenges around that to actually make it work. At the moment, that's more of an issue. Is that okay?
It is, yeah. Is it okay to come back, Kevin?
Yeah, Ben. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, it would be really useful to have a figure on those two projects. So
Sure.
the GEM project, and so how much money was allocated to that, let's say this financial year or last financial year, if it's less because of COVID, and how much is going to be lost because of Brexit to Gloucestershire's most vulnerable. What we're talking about is money being lost to Gloucestershire's most vulnerable. I think whatever political stripe you are, I think that's worth knowing. And just a point on the youth hubs, and it's an observation born through experience around the difficulty, especially for 18, 19-year-olds who end up having to visit job centres. It's not great. I don't want to go into too much detail because it sounds as if I'm going to generalise, but it's soul destroying, really, having supported many young people to do that. And I would encourage and endorse any way of supporting young people into work that keeps them away from job centres for as long as possible, physically away, to a different location. There's all sorts of reasons and research into why that's a good idea, but any way that can be done in the districts, I would really support and endorse.
Thanks, Ben. Just coming back on the second point first, I completely agree and understand. And I think that's part of the intention, really, just to create a different environment, really, and probably a more supportive environment. We all know what pressure work coaches are under in terms of the number of minutes that they're actually expected to see clients in, and young people trying to make their informed decisions, can't be kind of pressured in that way. It's got to be a different approach. So yeah, happy to sort of update when those get a little bit further. In terms of the point around funding, yeah, I mean the quick way, I can certainly follow up with Sophie and include on the LEP website, we've got links to the existing ESF projects and kind of the amount of funding, etc. What I would find harder to do is probably to be able to release how much has kind of what sort of underspend there is against target at the moment, but I'll see what I can do on that, Ben, and just check with the in terms of performance management what I can and can't release on that.
Okay, happy with that now, Ben. Okay, thank you. Right, going down the list, we now have Paul McCluskey. So yeah, Paul, sorry.
Yeah, thanks. My ears sort of pricked up when Kate mentioned the word transition, from junior school to the secondary school. And when I think back to the days when we had a youth club, the junior youth club was deliberately pitched at the 10 to 13 age group, and then like 14 to 16. But that meant that the top of the junior school were mixing with some people at the secondary school to just improve things. So that's not really the topic for today, but that just trigger this further thought. Well, how does the whole theory of youth work, as we used to have it, fit in with your skills agenda? Does it extend to those sorts of activities that are peripheral to the education environment, or are they completely separate? And if it's not with you, where do you put youth work and what you're doing together so that we actually have some common aims and objectives?
So that's a good point, Paul. And I think the short answer is it's not hugely joined up at the moment. That's the honest answer from my perspective. I mean, I think where we are linking is certainly with the youth support team. The idea is very much that with that NEETS project, we need them. You know, we've offered for the project team to actually go out and door knock with them to try and reach those young people who are NEET, you know, at home or where they are. And I think that, you know, it's that sort of approach that's needed in terms of, you know, more formal youth work, if you like, and youth work settings. I'd have to admit that I'm not really up to date on that, and you know, I'm not sort of familiar with exactly what the state of play is with that. So that's probably something I need to take away and talk to colleagues who actually are in running the youth service side of things.
If I can just come out of this segment, I think one of the reasons you struggle to find it is there isn't any, because of things we don't need to go into. But I'm keen to get further upstream, because by the time these kids are NEETs, we have a problem. The solution to this is to get the transition from 10 to the secondary school right. And, you know, it takes us all the way back to Sure Start centres and supporting mums with when their toddlers are just about starting to walk. But yeah, it's a big issue. And I think we're not going to have the complete solution if you're only looking at your segment of the pie, if you like.
Yeah, it's a very fair comment, Paul. I mean, I think it's and it's something probably you want to pick up with education team colleagues at GCC as well, because obviously they've got a very strong relationship with the junior schools, less of a relationship with the secondary schools because most of them are academies, and so that transition there, you know, there could well be some really good work going on that. You know, with colleagues, I'm just not aware of it. So I don't want to sort of speak out of ignorance on that one.
No, that's fine. I just thought, having you here, I thought I'd like to get the issue on the table. If at some stage the committee wants to come back to that, but I think it's the whole question of youth work is really, really important. Thank you.
I'd completely agree with your point about kind of trying to deal with the upstream before it becomes a problem. So yeah, I think it's a really good point to return to.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, John, and then next Stephen. So it's John Murphy first.
Thank you. I don't think I've missed this, but I just wonder whether you would mind enlightening me on Gatsby benchmarks. What are they, and how are they used?
Sorry, John. Yeah, that's an apology from me because I didn't explain that as part of the presentation. Essentially, what they are, it's a series of benchmarks that are just used to. They're generally accepted as what can be used to make up a good careers programme. So the first one is around developing a career strategy, and then the subsequent ones are things like you know, information about progression to higher education, access to work experience, getting links with local businesses, you know, things like that. So it's just broken down into a particular way, and that's the way that the careers hubs around the country and other organisations actually work. So and what we do is support the schools and other organisations on each of those benchmarks, trying to get to the point where each of the schools and colleges have actually achieved all of those benchmarks, and that's if you like, a proxy for saying they've got a good careers programme in place.
I see. So it's a way of validating a careers program.
Essentially, yeah. So the idea of the meeting, they do self-assessments based on those benchmarks, and then that they actually do some reporting into us as well to say how much progress they've made on those, and we work with them to try and improve those and look at where the gaps are.
I see. So the effectively a set of checklists, I assume. Yeah. Okay. And
again, I'm happy to provide a sort of summary of the benchmarks so people can see what's involved. That might help. But yeah, apologies, John. I'm sorry I didn't explain that earlier.
No, it's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, so you're okay with that, John? Okay, thanks. Stephen Davis.
Thank you, Chair. My question was more about, as we come out of every recession is different and has different characteristics, and I think this one will be as well. As we went into this, we actually had quite high levels of employment, certainly in Stroud, but across Gloucestershire generally. And we're clearly going to have some strong areas and some weak areas. What is the plan to make sure we measure and adjust our plan when we see what any recovery looks like? Because it will not be consistent across all areas.
It's a really good question, Stephen. I'm not sure I can fully answer it at the moment because I think it's some of the impacts as we know aren't seen yet. What we are seeing already, and that this has been one of the benefits of looking at the job postings data, is that has really bounced back, and that we're seeing some interesting patterns. So Tewkesbury and Forest of Dean, for example, are advertising more vacancies than the other districts. That there seems to be particular activity in those areas. In terms, and that's something that we're monitoring, quite closely and feeding back on a fairly regular basis as well to district colleagues. What I think is harder to say is how we'll adjust plans. I mean, I think some things we'll sort of crack on with because they relate to a particular place. So some of the work around construction, and the support around that, we will continue to do because that's where the construction projects are happening. I think where there's work on things like green construction, renewables, retrofit, which I know Stroud are doing a lot of work on. That to me is something that I think it's a case of trying to develop some good practice in a particular area, and then trying to expand that and use that model that's been developed in other parts of the county as well. But I think part of it is, without complicating things, the part of the issue for us is there's a big data lag in terms of seeing the unemployment count change, and seeing where when new sectors are developing. And I think a big part of it is just to try and make sure we're adjusting things by keeping a close eye on that intelligence and feeding it into people that can change it. Certainly we're trying to do that with the training providers and making sure that we're teeing them up for developments as soon as we can. But I'm very conscious, Stephen, that we haven't got all the answers on that. So if you've got particular thoughts or suggestions on that, I'd be very happy to talk to you about it.
No, sadly not. But I just worry that we will spend money in areas where actually everything is growing nicely, and miss areas where more help is needed. So I think we just need to be probably more flexible than we normally are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you for that. Anybody else with any questions? I'm just going to flip down again. No, I've got a couple. I'd like to, one statement really. I'm really pleased that the apprenticeships are across the board now. We're not just not looking at high-end engineering or the next Albert Einstein. We are actually looking at people who can pick a trowel up or pick a plane up and do the other jobs as well, because actually they're probably better paid than some of the other jobs that you would like to see at the moment. The other one was the Careers Hub. I mean, obviously, I'm going back a few decades now when I was at school. I mean, they used to come to schools, and I just wondered, is that something that, I mean, obviously COVID to stop that this year, but is that something potentially you're going to look at? And you've got this online offer of come and have a look at us. Is that something the schools are also going to encourage children to do, to actually look at the careers online thing? Because obviously it's great that we've got it, but the kids need to know about it, and if they don't know about it, they won't look at it, will they? It's all right telling us, but we're not looking for jobs. So, and we're not youngsters anymore either. As you called me a flipping wrinkly. Thank you very much, Pete. And obviously the other one is the other thing that we used to do, and I don't know whether you still do it, is interview techniques and stuff like that as well. So even though they know where there's a job, they need to be equipped to go and try and get that job, and given the best opportunity to do it. And I just wondered, is that something that we're looking at as well? Because it's all right saying, yeah, go to the Smith factory over there, they've got 20 jobs going, and as we talked about the equality and everything else, some of those children that are better equipped at the better schools would be better equipped to interview better, and then will get the job. Those that aren't won't. So we need to level that playing field as well, really. Pete.
Thanks for the simple task there. Appreciate that, Kevin. It's not going to be straightforward. I mean, in terms of Careers Hub, yes, the idea is very much that we've been working. We've got a small working group with a number of school careers leads that we've actually been discussing careers coach with and other resources. So they've been helping inform us on that one, and absolutely all of the enterprise advisors and all the careers leads in schools will know about it. In fact, they've been communicated with already. So it is something that they will be working through with their students. In terms of the actually kind of going into businesses and working that through, yes, we've just got. In fact, the first meeting was yesterday. We've got what we call Cornerstone Employers group, who are going to help us drive the links between local businesses and the schools. And actually offer opportunities themselves to do that, and to galvanise other businesses to do that. So we're continuing to ask for that support and gather that support, and that's what we're wanting to link into schools. Interview support, and thank you for your support on that previously, and others on this call. I think that we're taking a little bit of a pause on that at the moment, because the team's very much working around the on a slightly more strategic way around the Gatsby benchmarks that we were talking about with John earlier. And I think we may not be offering the interview program in the same way at the moment. We're just trying to weigh up whether that's something that is going to be too kind of an ask too far for the team, or whether there's another way of delivering that. But we think that that still has value. It's just a case of how that's provided and who does it. And I've got a feeling I've missed one of your points, but I'll pause there.
Yeah, I mean, what I had a young lady that I helped the other day, and she spoke to me about what did I think. A friend of mine's daughter. And, she was looking for jobs, but kept getting turned down for jobs. And I did say to her, well, what jobs are you aiming for? And are you actually aiming at a point where, because you've come straight out of university, where you've not got the experience, you're competing with people with experience. Are you aiming too high? Are you not better off going in at a slightly lower level and applying for jobs when you're actually employed in a job already, and moving up the ladder, or gaining some experience, so that when you go to the next interview for the job that you aspire to do, you've then got some work experience as well. It's basic for us. It's sort of quite simple thought process and knowledge, but for youngsters, it's like, well, the school have told me I've got to go for that, and sometimes it's just. Yeah, we're all told to aim for the stars. Of course we are, but sometimes there's the ladder in which how you get up to those stars, isn't there? And I think that that basic advice, and the young lady, she went out and got a job, and since then she's subsequently been offered a job that she prefers and wants. So, you know, to be honest, you know, I'm not patting myself on the back, but you know, that advice was for her was good advice, and I think, you know, that's something that I think, you know, careers guys should be giving. Yeah, and the other thing that I do think that schools need to, you know, change down a bit. I mean, I did go to a launch of our careers school and the technical centre at the Tewkesbury Comprehensive, and what I was a bit dismayed of is it was a fantastic building and they were really showing it off, but they didn't have anybody there of any skills that showed who made the building. They had all the blue chip companies there, but they had nobody there that, you know, to say, look, you know, see that paint on the wall, that's the sort of trade we offer. You see the brickwork over there, that's the sort of trade we offer. They didn't have any of that, and I feel still schools are still pushing children at points, and then when they don't get there, they feel like they've failed, and that then knocks them really backwards.
Yeah, I mean, just coming back very briefly on that. I mean, I think we are seeing some schools, for example, you know, Ribston Hall, who we've been working with on the career strategy and various other things with them, and they are now very actively explaining a much wider offer to their students around apprenticeships and other things, and I think, you know, for me that is a selective school, but I think, you know, it's partly trying to implement change with them as well. So, and then I think absolutely from the point of view of you know, practical careers advice and kind of where people's careers start, on a personal level, you know, I my son left university in the summer and really struggled to actually, you know, get a job straight away. You know, that there were, but by the time he actually got offered a job, he put in 70, you know, good quality applications. So, you know, it is just really tough at the moment, and I think, as you say, young people are being pushed back down the queue by other people who have got that experience, and in employers' eyes are a safer bet at the moment.
So sometimes get a lesser job, get the experience, and then you go back to that with that experience. That's that, you know. So what I'm saying is sometimes 6 months of doing another job is better advice. Okay.
Yeah. And if you could just help me with what I do when I grow up, that would be great. Thanks.
Yeah. When I become an adult, can you help me, please? Right. Okay. And on that note, I don't think you've got any more questions. So yeah, if you want any advice, just pop round. I'll give you the address. Okay. Right. Okay. We'll move on to our item 8, which is the review of the Growth Hub service. We have Sarah Danson, Sam Hord, and Katie Power, and I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting. And I guess you're going to do a sort of mix all, match all presentation, I guess.
We certainly are. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you to everybody for letting us come along and do this update for you. I'm just going to try and share the presentation with you. Might be my first failing. Oh, here we go. Lovely. Okay, hopefully that's working for everybody. So I think what I wanted to start with was just to say that this project is probably now quite familiar to everybody. It started in 2014. You'll have seen the rollout for some of the facilities around the county. But what I'm hoping to show through the presentation and with the help of my colleagues is that we have not stood still. So as a LEP, we have continued to innovate the products and services that we're delivering. We look at new opportunities for businesses, we respond to the government and the local priorities, and of course, particularly this year, we've been responding to the economic shocks. So we're part of a network of 38 growth hubs across England, and although there is much more alignment in terms of delivery across the network, I would say there's still quite a lot of differences, and in Gloucestershire we're still quite unique in terms of our model. We got started, as I said, early on through a partnership with the University of Gloucestershire. They secured some higher education catalyst funding. And from there, because we got that early start, we've been able to build some really strong foundations. And I think now we have a product and a service that's extremely agile. We are recognised by government as an exemplar growth hub in terms of what we do. And that's why we were asked to be one of 10 cluster leads representing Swindon and Wiltshire LP and West of England combined authority at a national level. So Sam and I attend weekly meetings with the cluster leads. We disseminate information back from government through to our cluster. We've done some joint procurement activity with them, and we've also done some joint delivery with them. So that's a role that we're enjoying very much, but also we feel is very, very beneficial to all of us in terms of sharing best practice. One of the things that did make us unique was the fact that we had £9 million of capital investment that we secured via the Strategic Economic Plan. £5 million of that went to the University of Gloucestershire, and you'll be familiar with the business school building, which houses the Growth Hub, and also it's where GFest LEP are co-located in terms of their offices. In addition to that, the main resourcing for the Growth Hub activity is through a European Regional Development Fund. It's a £3.4 million contract. It's been given over two contracts, so it's actually now a 6-year programme. And it's match funded by the LEP and also by all of the network partners in terms of the resourcing. And as we've just been hearing about with other European projects, that project will come to an end in December 2022. And I'm just going to pass on to Sam to talk a little bit more about the network.
Good afternoon. So the Growth Hub provision in Gloucestershire is built around a geographic network. This ensures there's a physical presence across the county. There are 3 tiers of Growth Hub provision, with Gloucestershire County Council libraries being tier 3 at 31 sites right across the county, and they've been operating with us in terms of Growth Hub from 2017. A tier 3 is very much an access point for businesses who are looking for support. So they have trained staff on site who will help with the provision of a direct Growth Hub website access through a tablet type device. Alongside these services are, as Pete touched on earlier, there's an existing innovation lab, and there are planned future innovation labs within the libraries, and they provide links with the Growth Hub access to provide a rounded support for businesses. In terms of Tier 1 Growth Hubs, they are based in Gloucester at the University of Gloucestershire and in the Cotswolds through the Royal Agricultural University based in Cirencester. So Tier 1 Growth Hubs, along with general business support, have a specialism. So the University of Gloucestershire's specialism is its link with the business school. And as Sarah said, they've been operating since 2014. In terms of the Royal Agricultural University, seen here, their specialism is in the Agritech Centre, and they have very close links with Farm 491, which is located in the same building. And they've been operating a Growth Hub service since 2018. In terms of Tier 2 Growth Hubs, Tewkesbury, seen here, along with the delivery partners, Tewkesbury Borough Council. Katie Powers here to talk to you a little bit more about that one in a second. So other Tier 2 provision, the Forest of Dean at Vantage Point Business Village in Mitchell Dean is hoping to open its physical facility next month. There have been delays around this particular facility, and that's been the causes around COVID naturally, but they have remained engaged with us throughout, attending regular meetings with us. So in the Growth Hub in Stroud, which our partners are South Gloucestershire and Stroud College. So this is the Stroud campus. They opened 2 weeks before the first lockdown, but all of the Tier 2 offer general support. So our latest provision is at Cheltenham, and that actually started its virtual delivery on the 1st of March this year. So the Growth Hub is partnered with Cheltenham Borough Council, who will set up a joint venture with Workshop Group for the operational delivery of the Growth Hub. The physical Growth Hub will be part of the wider Minster Innovation Exchange project, which is due to open towards the end of the year.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm expecting my dogs to appear at any moment as well, so don't worry. Just to also just mention, part of the investment we made from the £4.4 million that we spent across the network is also in digital infrastructure. So creating a centralised website, a central CRM system. So all of the business navigators that are our client-facing advisors all use the same system, all report in the same way. That allows us to have a consistency in terms of monitoring and reporting of all our activity. So that's really useful. As you'll see from the website, we want to help your business grow wherever you are in Gloucestershire. So Sam's already explained about the network. We do that through offering events, as you would expect. They're very, very popular and have continued to be so even through a virtual platform. You can get one-to-one support. And obviously when we're open, businesses can come in and use facilities for their own meetings and their networking. In terms of service, under European Regional Development Fund, we are quite directed in terms of supporting SMEs, but actually as a Growth Hub network, our commitment is to support every business. And we do what we call a scaled support service. So our aim is not to get businesses eligibility, but the business in terms of where it is in its phases of growth. So some businesses might need quite a light touch online solution from us. They might want to come and use the space. They might want to come in and attend networking events. We offer not only one-to-many events, but we also offer advice clinics. So again, that might be the level of support that businesses want. And then when we get to face-to-face support, that's with our business navigators. So that's a minimum of 3 hours of support, and then on to the business guides, which is up to 2 days of consultation. And we have seen businesses move through that triangle over the years of activity that we've been doing to date. This year, obviously, you would expect that we've been responding to businesses' requirements around COVID-19. So as Sam mentioned, from March this year, everything went online. Our business advisors have continued to support businesses, and in fact, we've seen twice the amount of interactions with businesses that we've seen before. Many of these were originally very light touch. In the very early stages, we didn't actually have a lot we could share with businesses, but we were there to listen, and businesses really appreciated our advisors reaching out to support them where they could. We've continued to move businesses where we can through to recovery and through to growth, but obviously we still have a lot of businesses that are struggling through that recovery phase, and we're supporting them as well as we can. And we've worked very closely with our local authority colleagues in terms of our COVID-19 response. And Sam holds a monthly meeting that the local authority colleagues attend so that we can share what's happening and help to tailor the service where we can to be more appropriate for the needs of businesses in those local areas. But as I've said, even this year, we haven't stood still. So we have brought in to our services some specialist guide support so that we can still help to support our businesses that are growing where we can. So we've been focusing on business sustainability and green recovery, working with Andrew. We know that getting businesses online and the adoption of tech is incredibly important to businesses, not only in terms of growth through new clients and new markets, but also in terms of productivity. So we've been working with Hannah to help us do that. And then Paul has been helping us in terms of business planning and change management and building strategies. So we have been very much trying to help businesses look forward and plan forwards so that when we start to see recovery building, that businesses are ready to take on any opportunities that offers. And we talked a little bit right at the beginning of the meeting about grants for businesses, and this is an example of some European Regional Development SME recovery grants that we had for the county. These were actually administered through the University of Gloucestershire. They had about 140 grants of up to £3,000 that they could distribute. Within a day, they had about 1,000 expressions of interest for those grants. When they finally opened the application process, they had to close it after an hour, and they had 220 businesses that applied for the grants at that time. So there is huge demand for these sort of grants, even though they may appear quite small in monetary value to some businesses. What we did as a lab, because we were conscious of the fact that many businesses weren't able to have a grant, was we actually then reached out to them. So we contacted every single business that was either unsuccessful or had expressed an interest in a grant, so that we could find out what it was that they were wanting support with, and where that support wasn't around a physical object, so a laptop, for example, where it was around support for helping a social media strategy to get more customers or to get your business online, we were able to redirect those businesses to support that was already available from the local enterprise partnership and from the Growth Hub. Another project that we launched this year was the peer network. So that launched quite late in the year in October. Our ambition was to run 10 cohorts of 11 participants. Due to COVID-19, EU exit and the third national lockdown, that's actually proven to be quite difficult. So we've actually run 6 cohorts in this programme, but we have secured funding for the additional, for the next 12 months to run some more cohorts, and our plan next year is to run 12 cohorts. Where businesses have participated, we have had absolutely fantastic feedback that networking with their peers is absolutely vital to helping them move their businesses forward. Customer satisfaction is around about 87% from the programme. So as a pilot programme, it's been really helpful to us to see what we can do in terms of delivery next year. And we're really, really keen that we do make sure that this programme has a county-wide reach for the delivery, which will start from April. And then we've already touched on this as well, so I won't talk a lot about it, but this is the EU transition activity that has been run through Growth Hubs. And the difference with this programme to anything we've done before was the emphasis on outreach. So the team have contacted nearly 1,900 businesses. We've had very little inbound. We've had about 67 inbound inquiries for businesses seeking help. Now, that might be partly because we've been so proactive on the outbound, but actually nationally, there is a concern that we're not seeing the inbound inquiries from businesses coming in. The survey that we launched on Monday of this week, and within a day we had 78 businesses completing that survey, shows the figures that we mentioned earlier, which is 60% of businesses still feel that they are not fully prepared for EU exit, and that the impact on the bottom line is between 10 and 20%. So still a lot of work to do there, and we are working to see how we can continue to support businesses through EU exit once this project has stopped. But I think it's we have to be realistic that the level of outbound activity and the outreach to businesses will be incredibly challenging through our existing Growth Hub teams, who are still very much responding to COVID-19 activity. And at that point, I'm going to pass on to Katie.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Katie Power. I'm Tewkesbury Growth Hub Manager. We felt today it would be useful to share a case study about Tewkesbury Growth Hub, as it's one of the first growth hubs to be delivered in by a district council. So a unique model, really, in that case. So just a bit of background for those who aren't aware of the Tewkesbury Growth Hub. We did a successful bid to the LEP to refurbish an area within our reception area that we felt would provide a unique hub for building business support for businesses across our borough and also the wider Gloucestershire. We felt that it would build on our already successful economic development service that we had, and give us a focal point and a shop front, really, for providing those business support activities. We also felt the public service centre, with its multi-agency approach at Tewkesbury, would also provide the perfect place for providing localised support, which is at the heart of what the Growth Hub network provides. In terms of what we provide at Tewkesbury, We provide the tier 2 level support, as Sam's already explained. So that is the provision of a Growth Hub navigator to help businesses with their growth plans. We put on a range of workshops and one-to-one advice sessions. Out of lockdown, when we're fully open, we offer a co-working space, we offer meeting rooms, and we also offer 3 incubator spaces for businesses who are starting out or looking to expand and grow. All of those areas have proved to be really successful with the local business community. And during COVID, we've obviously moved our services. We've worked really in an agile way to move all those services online, and they've continued to work really well. I think our USP, though, as a council model of Growth Hub, really is how we've streamlined our services across the council and aligned them with the Growth Hub services so that we have one point of contact, and we coordinate that through the hub to make it as easy as possible for businesses to get all the support they need in one go through one touch point. We've achieved this through putting champions in all business facing service areas, so they're the main point of contact for the Growth Hub, and then we bring those champions in to give that support and advice to the businesses that we are dealing with and supporting through their growth plans. We also put on surgery sessions, for example, through our planning service. We operate free planning surgery sessions on a regular basis so that businesses can get that first initial advice to explore their plans, and then it gives them that engagement and that connection with those teams directly, and also helps those teams as well to understand it from a business perspective and understand their needs. So we found that's worked really well over the 2 years that we've now been open, and it's changed our relationship with the council, with businesses as a council. It's increased engagement across all areas. So we found this to be a really positive way of dealing with businesses, and has totally transformed the way in which we deal with businesses. In terms of other partners in the building, we obviously also have Job Centre Plus is our neighbour to the hub, and we work really closely with Job Centre Plus. We've got a great relationship with them, and we work very closely in terms of trying to encourage people back into work. We host a lot of the adult education and Job Centre courses within the hub, and provide light touch support to those people looking to start up a business. And also this position of having it in the council offices has really helped in terms of COVID recovery, and helping those businesses, and has made us put us in a position to be able to react very efficiently and effectively to that. We've worked very closely with our business rates colleagues and our colleagues in finance to create a business cell. And we were able to action the COVID grants that have been offered to businesses, and proactively call businesses and point them in the right direction, and also then help them with growth plans as well. So a wraparound support really in terms of that offer, which the hub enabled us to do as a council. And then we've also worked very closely with our colleagues in environmental health about the reopening of the high streets, and we'll be doing that again shortly. And our work with them about signposting to the support that the environmental health service can offer them, and the advice and guidance, and then also providing growth plan support to those businesses when they needed it, has been recognised at a national government level in terms of being able to efficiently help them. And we've got a lot of support and engagement from businesses on the back of that, who've then known who to come to and who to contact when they need further advice and support. And going forward into recovery, the Growth Hub being placed within the council is a great asset to have, because we're now aligning that support that the council is providing through our ED service with the Growth Hub support. So looking at how we can align our grant scheme to support with the growth advisors, And so that can be aligned, and people who are seeking grants can also get growth plan advice to help them use that grant in the best possible way. And we are also looking, as Pete mentioned earlier, we are exploring a bid to have a youth hub within the Tewkesbury Growth Hub. And this would be looking at encouraging young people to come in and get advice if they were looking to start a business. And we also have a young team at the Tewkesbury Growth Hub who have been apprentices and have worked their way up through the ranks in that way. So we feel that will help encourage young people and give them that environment where they'll feel they'll want to come in and get that advice and work closely with DWP on that. So based on that, we feel that our model is a really good one in terms of aligning economic development and the growth hub, and would encourage other councils across the county and wider to look at doing that. And through COVID, we've learned that working together with economic development and growth hubs has worked really well. So would encourage that. But yeah, I'll hand back to Sarah. Thank you.
You're on mute, Sarah, sorry.
Thank you. Sorry, I got muted. I think it's because my I think there was some background noise. Apologies, I didn't know how to get myself off mute then. Hopefully that's been a bit of a quick tour of where the Growth Hub is today, and thank you to my colleagues who've joined me for that. We had some questions that we wanted to pose the committee in terms of what our priorities should be, how perhaps local authorities can help us provide the future development and longer term sustainability of growth hubs, and how we can make sure that growth hub activity is closely aligned with the economic development priorities in each district. But I'm happy to for us to take any questions from you in the first instance, if you'd rather do that before we moved on to those questions.
If you, the only problem is I can't see who's asking questions because you've got your display up, so maybe you might need to just, okay, thank you. Right, is there anybody with any questions before we move on? Dave, maybe move on to the last bit. Brian, is there any chance you could use your electronic hand at all, please?
Well, I have got that one up actually, but you didn't see it, so
I can't see it. No, you just.
So I've got a wave as well. Anyway,
okay.
It's just a general question before we get into the questions they posed, which was in the discussions. I think you've been talking about the funding that you had that enabled you to set up the way you did, but it runs out in 2022. So I wondered, I mean, that's not far away. I wondered what the plan was for future funding, and are they in place or being negotiated?
So there's lots of discussions around funding at the moment. So there's two different pots of funding here. So the capital funding allowed us to establish the network in terms of the physical facilities that you will see, and to build those partnerships with colleagues. The resource funding is the one that will finish in December 2022. So there's a lot of discussion at a government level at the moment in terms of what the UK Shared Prosperity Fund will look like, and whether that will be a replacement for European funding. And I think the key point to make in terms of growth delivery is that it needs to be free and impartial at the point of contact. And the feedback we're providing to government is it would be very difficult to deliver a free and impartial service if it doesn't have some sort of central government funding in the future.
You're fairly confident that there will be something continuing then?
I think we need to wait and see what's happening. At the moment, at least we do have that time frame of December 2022, which gives us some reassurance. But that, you know, I'm also aware that that's going to go very quickly.
Thank you, Chairman. I just think, in light of that response, it might be something that we should be urging the committee and the G First to be taking forward with our support, really. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, David, have you got anything to add to that at all?
No, just to reiterate what Sarah said, we're still I mean, the network are working really hard at a national level to be really clear about how absolutely vital Growth Hub services have been across the country, both in collecting data from businesses to understand the challenges of Brexit, then in collecting data to understand the challenges of COVID and the impacts. And we've seen, as I think I've said to this committee before, we've seen the direct result of those challenges coming back down through announcements for support for various sectors over the course of the last 12 months, and how important they'll be on an ongoing basis to share information with businesses, but also collect information from businesses. So, but ultimately, as we all know, these decisions are partly political, partly about prioritisation, and partly about what money's available. So time will tell, but we'll keep working on it.
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether Mike wanted to add to, because obviously we've got the one based in in Tewkesbury Borough, so I didn't know whether that would have some bearing on the ones within district offices.
There's not a lot I can add to what Sarah and David have said. Completely agree with the importance of the growth hubs, and there does seem to be, from my sort of conversations with government, a recognition at government level of the good work they do. The advantage for Tewkesbury, or Tewkesbury's Growth Hub, of course, is that we have combined our economic development funding and functions with the operation of the Growth Hub, so they are very much aligned. And so, just so people are aware, the hub was provided physically by the capital funding. The staff within the hub are paid for by Tewkesbury Borough Council, and that really is a really good partnership for the way that we work together within the Growth Hub system. It's worked really well for us, and as you've heard from Katie, it really helps when everything is aligned and pointed in the same direction. Makes life easier for all. Thank you.
Yeah, I thought I'd just mention that, Mike, because obviously some people might not understand the model that, like for instance, that Tewkesbury Borough runs. So therefore, it might make ours a little bit more secure than, with funding as it might others that totally rely upon the outside model. That's
true, Chairman, but I think the wider support for growth hubs and the network in which we operate is what the funding becomes crucial for. And without that support, it would be very, very difficult to operate a successful network.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that. Anybody else with any other questions? No, let me just flick up. I can see John Murphy.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. It's very informative. Really, just background question. Really, I just wondered what level of business experience and what level of training and facilitator training that business advisors had. So that's the first question. The second one relates to, again, training, I suppose. The specialist guides, do they provide any formal training to the business advisors so that in the long term the growth hubs aren't as dependent upon those individuals?
Sarah, are you going to answer that one?
Yeah, I will. Thank you. Yeah, two really, really great questions. Thank you very much. So in terms of our business guides who do work with a higher growth company, they tend to come from business backgrounds that can be quite mixed. So one of our business guides has a banking and finance background, for example. Somebody else has been within an international business and has been very much involved in import, export and product development within that business, manufacturing business. So they tend to either come from business themselves or have skills that they've built up through their own career, which can be applied to their conversations with businesses. Our business navigators are really interesting because you can't pick a business navigator off the shelf. They're the ones that do our first level of support. They tend to be amazing customer service people that have a genuine interest in businesses. They're fantastic at doing a diagnostic, understanding what it is business needs, and then delivering those results. So they build up their knowledge over time. So the new team that's just starting at Cheltenham, for example, will be receiving support from the existing business navigators that are there, but also learning all the time as they go along the way. In terms of the specialist advisors, I'm so glad you asked that question, the specialist guides. What we are doing with them at the moment is they're building what we're calling legacy tools. So within their own expertise, there's quite a lot of tools and techniques that they use in terms of helping businesses assess their current service. So, for example, Hannah, who works with businesses, will be assessing their web presence and how they might be improving the contacts they have with businesses. And actually, she uses some tools which are quite readily available to do that. Obviously, her expertise is in how she then translates what she's seeing. But we are doing as much as we can to upskill our own internal teams, as well as making use of that expertise that those guides are bringing into us.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any other people indicating. If you can lower your hand, please, John. So if you'd like to carry on, Sarah, that would be useful.
Thank you. So it was really just about the questions that we were presenting, which was how do we closely align growth of activity with economic development priorities in each of your districts? What are your views on the following priority activities? So these are ones that we've identified, which is about getting more businesses online, supporting business sustainability, and supporting businesses to innovate, because we know that's linked to productivity. And also, what support can you as local authorities offer us to support the future development and long-term sustainabilities of growth hubs?
Okay.
Chairman, I put my hand down and put it back up again. So
it's funny how I can't see electronically. I don't know whether you're on the latest one, updated your tablet or not. Okay, Brian.
Yes, just to pick up really the point there about getting people online and aligning to local need. One of the things which we've done in the Forest of Dean for quite a few years, but I think it's now stopped. Well, certainly would be stopped because of COVID. Is to actually meet, and Vantage Point was one of the locations where breakfast meetings were held, and they were quite popular. I think they had some funding which meant you got a free breakfast out of it somewhere, which may have been why they were popular. But actually, the benefit of bringing a lot of business people together at that time of the day, which means that they can usually carry on doing their business activities without much interruption, I think was very useful, and it was very good at capturing the smaller business, or the one where it might even be a single operator. And I think that would be a good sort of type of activity to actually capture businesses, particularly those that we wanted to encourage into a more online engagement, because the bottom line is you're going to have to capture them outside of the online world in order to get them involved, because they're currently not there. So I think that my view would be, certainly in the Forest of Dean, that would be a good way of engaging with that group. And once you've got them engaged, I think you could take them in either direction of prioritisation of the work of the Growth Hub, or into the key point of getting them into an online world.
Yeah, you're nodding, Sarah, but did you want to answer that?
Yeah, thank you. And I think, one of the things we recognise is that as soon as we can get our facilities back open, that businesses will want to be coming back in to those facilities. And hopefully by that point, we will have Vantage Point open, and we'll be able to look at doing some networking events and advice clinics around that very subject.
Okay, thank you. John Murphy.
Thank you again. Regarding getting businesses online, would you mind going back to that specific point and just read out what your actual question is before I actually answer it?
Sorry, yes. So is getting business? Do you agree that getting businesses online is a priority? So, and there's several levels of this. So For some businesses, that will be as simple as them having a social media presence, but for others, it will be them developing something like an e-commerce platform, which will, you know, transition the way they're talking to their clients.
Okay, thank you. I do have quite a lot of experience on this, to be perfectly honest. So it's a very interesting area. I mean, the simple answer to your question is yes, it must be. I mean, there are lots of, when it comes to websites specifically, as opposed to using social media, when it comes to websites specifically, there's lots of brochure-like sites, there's lots of vanity sites, but the reality is what business needs are leads. They need customers. And so rather than have, you know, a voluminous website telling you all the great things about a business, the main thing about a website as far as a business is concerned is getting leads, getting people actually into what I would call, and what generally is called in marketing, a funnel, a sales funnel. So that's it. It's as simple as that. It doesn't have to be a complicated website. You just need a sales funnel. And the only thing that anybody can do on the page, which may contain a video, the only thing they can do is off their email address to find out more. That's it for me. But yes, it's a good idea.
Thank you. And I think one of the things we've experienced in the past is that there's that businesses are quite risk averse in terms of that investment into their digital presence online, and you know, you hear stories of businesses that have made the wrong decision about what their website should be doing and perhaps invested quite a lot of money, and then it's not entirely worked for them. So Hannah's very useful in terms of analysing what's already happening with businesses that are online. But we've also done some really nice work around the RDF SME grants, which we talked about earlier, by aligning business support alongside the grant that's going to the business to make sure that the business is investing that money in the right way. So it's all about helping businesses make the right decisions about getting their digital presence correct for them.
Yes, yeah. I mean, certainly as far as e-commerce is concerned, yes, potentially one can spend a lot of money on that. But thinking about sites other than e-commerce sites, one can buy a piece of software to generate sales funnels for as little as nothing, actually. If you use WordPress, you could use WordPress as a sales funnel, and a self-hosted WordPress site doesn't cost you anything other than the cost of the domain and a bit of hosting. If you want a proper funnel builder, well, you could spend £100 a month with ClickFunnels, or for a one-off cost, you could spend $97, which is a bit cheaper and not a massive investment, really. So you're talking, I don't know, for a non-e-commerce site, say initially for the first year, $3 a month for hosting, $9 a year for the domain, and $97 for a sales funnel. And probably you want to spend some money on an autoresponder so that when you capture the email address, you can keep in contact with that contact and send them email after email to encourage them either back to another part of the site to do something, to do an action, or to visit your place of work. Anyway, that's me. That's my rant over.
No, and it's a really valid point, and I don't think as a growth hub we've mapped that out. You know, the different stages that business can do. Like you said, for a very low investment, they'll get X, Y, and Z, and if they go to the next stage, they'll get the next level. And I think it's something that Sam and I have talked about actually is trying to present that to businesses in a way that they understand, and then they can make the right choices. So we'll be back in touch, I think, John, to talk to you about that a bit more, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I'd love to help.
There you go. Made a contact. That's helpful. Right, Gina, you're next, and then obviously Paul.
Yeah, and mute's off. Yes, well, thank you very much. Really interesting presentation. I think what's wonderful about these growth hubs is how they're spread around the districts. So it's not, so much seems or is observed to be centralised, and certainly in the Cotswolds, for many of the businesses, it's a long journey to go down to Cheltenham or Gloucester or whatever it is to go and learn more or benefit their business. So this is fantastic, having them distributed. In our area, obviously, it's a lot of hospitality. There's a lot of in the tourism business and independent retails shops on our high streets. So they're small businesses, and also that's sort of reflected also in the industrial business parks. Generally, really quite small independent businesses doing their thing. I think some of those have actually not had so many problems. So of course, it varies hugely, but certainly on the high street and the hospitality have been hit hard. So those people could do with a lot of help, and we'd appreciate all of that. And I thought Brian's point about these breakfast meetings, I think it is an essentially good way, especially for small businesses, to get together, and as also has been referred to, is to share experiences, to share knowledge, to build contacts. You can be very so I'm fully supportive of the whole thing. Would love to have anything can ever help up in this way in the Cotswolds, and that's our view up this way. We also are excited about increasing our cyber offering, one way or another, centred obviously on Cirencester, but that could be a great growth thing for the Cotswolds. So thank you very much. I think it's great.
Thank you. That's nice to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul McCluskey.
Yeah, thank you. It's funny, the questions only occur to you when they occur to you. So whether I might have asked this earlier or not, I'm not sure. One of the trends of the moment is so-called ESG investing, environmental, social and governance. In other words, that we're not trying to just allow businesses to make money. We'd like them to do it sustainably in a green way, with adding social value, governing governance, internal governance in such a way that they include things like diversity, inclusion, and all of the good things we'd like to see. I'm just curious to know how much of how many hands do you have on their steering wheel in the sense of directing them in the way we would like things to go. So we, in the sense of Cheltenham, we yet to discover what happens when we actually get to opening the Minster Innovation Exchange. But for us, the direction of travel is very much that we want a green recovery. And there's a wonderful opportunity here for you to nudge these people to, think outside the box and innovate.
Absolutely, and I think it's an area that we're just scratching the surface of. If I'm completely honest with you, we've done some work, as I said, bringing Andrew in to help businesses looking at their sustainability and their green recovery. We've had very little uptake, despite that being a free offer to businesses for him to come in and share his expertise. In terms of social value, that's a piece of work that Sam's actually doing for us as an LEP around equality, inclusivity and diversity, and I know Sam's very keen then to make sure that we're looking at that across our Growth Hub offer. And that's something that we've also been talking to West of England Combined Authority and Swindon Wiltshire LEP about as well. So how do we build that into the offer that the Growth Hub has and have those conversations with businesses? So very early days for us in terms of that area, but it is something we're looking at.
Good. Well, I'd possibly like you to come back in whenever and tell us how you've got on, because I think this is absolutely fundamental to a whole load of agendas, really. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. I mean, just a couple of comments for me. Yes, I think people, the businesses should get online, but it's always something that businesses are always frightened of as well, especially of a certain age group. The internet frightens the living daylights out of them, so they tend to shy away. And the other thing is quite a lot of businessmen are quite strong-willed type people, and taking advice sometimes from other people is something that they sometimes don't like either. It's very difficult to advise somebody when they almost think they know best, because obviously that's why they're in that type of business. It is a very difficult market that you're trying to get, you're working within, because obviously some people don't like being advised and being told what to do, because not that you tell them exactly what to do, but you try and help them, but they feel it's like they're being told what to do. And the other one is obviously if you're trying to get, if they come to you for advice and they know the first thing you're going to say to us, oh, well, you want to go online, that's the last thing they sometimes want to hear as well, because it frightens the living daylights out of them. So, you know, that's why they tend to sort of be, some of them don't, the uptake isn't quite, sometimes when you offer these things isn't always what you think it would be. And the Breakfast Club model is you know, we have one in Tewkesbury, and that model I think is probably the better one, because actually you can be talking to people and giving them advice without them even realizing they're getting some. So maybe that would be a good model to move forward on. But thank you for your presentation. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, Katie. For that, you have no more questions or no more statements of fact or whatever. So thank you for that, and we'll hopefully see you again sometime. Right. Item 9 is the Executive Director's report. This is to note and update the report from Colin Chick. So obviously it's just to note. I didn't know whether Colin wanted to add anything to it, but it is that the report is just for noting, really.
No, as in previous times, I'll just say, if there's anything that's unclear, anyone wants to, if there's any questions people are asked, more than happy to answer. I wasn't preparing to talk to the report.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. So has anybody got any questions for Colin? Gina, is your hand still up from last time, or is it up again for this one? Okay. Well, Colin, we've gone. Oh, Paul McCluskey.
Yep. I've read so many updates on this cycle scheme between Cheltenham and Gloucester. I just wondered if you could give us the 30-second version of where we are now, because since the start of lockdown, I've started cycling, and it is one of my ambitions actually to cycle to Gloucester one day. So, yeah. What can you do to tempt me?
My first attempt to cycle from Gloucester to Cheltenham for a meeting took me along the A40 when I first arrived, and much to my shock and horror, I suddenly had a grey separated interchange to negotiate with going across slip roads with cars trying to weave past me at 60 miles an hour. So I know the problem, but I also am very much aware of obviously the issues on the B4603, which is the alternative route. Let's take the whole route that goes from Gloucester from central Gloucester to the centre of Cheltenham. We did during the first phase of lockdown last summer put the London Road section of the scheme in from London Road up to Escort Road roundabout. We are at the moment consulting on the section. We're out for consulting. I think it closes this week, the consultation, if you haven't seen it, on the section between Elmbridge roundabout and Arle Court, on the scheme on that section there. The section from Arle Court to basically what's known as the Wictis project, which is the West Cheltenham Transportation Walking and Wictis Cycling and Transport Project. The acronyms. Anyway, that is on. There's 5 phases to that. There's phases 1 and 2, which went on site last year. There's phases 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 that went on site in January and will be finished at the end of this year. The phases 1 and 2 will be finished in the middle of this year in summer. All of those have cycling elements within those schemes, which will take the cycling scheme. So this is being built at the moment, which will take the cycling provision from Arle Court, where the B4603 scheme finishes, all the way along the A40 into Cheltenham. And there's a small section at the end, which is being designed at the moment, which is the link back into the station at Cheltenham. So funding wise, we have about, at this moment, we've got about 12 million of the about 11 million of all the funding we need. We're probably about 2 million short. That 2 million is really because we would have had easily enough, but last year a new design standard came out by the government called LTN 120, which is a much higher demand on cycling provision on terms of standards to be used. And we inherited this project from Highways England, the B4603 part of it anyway, and they gave us a fixed sum of money, and they designed the scheme to the old standards, we are now having to revisit the whole of that design and bring it up to the latest standards that DfT expect. And as a consequence of that, that's increased the cost of the scheme by about £2 million. About £1 million. The other £1 million is needed because the scheme that was given to us by Highways England actually finished at Great Western Road near Tesco's, near the Nepalese chef in Gloucester on London Road. And it basically thought cyclists could just go down Great Western Road and then go through the underpass at the railway station. If you've ever tried to use the underpass, it's absolutely heaving with people on foot. So and quite right, Network Rail have said no, you can't use that for cyclists. So what we're trying to do at the moment, and the other additional money, is we're trying to design a scheme which is not easy because you have to go underneath that railway bridge just before you get to Black Dog Way. But then to take that section we've just finished at London Road from Great Western Road, back right into the centre of Gloucester across Black Dog Way by using phasing of signals to create the space in time. If we can't create that space in space, if you see what I mean, because of the narrowness of the bridge. So that hopefully gives you a feeling of the whole scheme. We aim to have substantially almost all of the scheme finished by the end of the 21 22 financial year. So by this time next year, the scheme you hopefully will be able to ride from, I can't promise the last bit about Great Western Road into the centre of Gloucester because that's going to be very tricky to do, but the rest of it should be complete by this time next year, and you'll be able to ride from Great Western Avenue, Great Western Road, i.e. the hospital, basically, Nepalese chef who's been there for an Indian meal, all the way back through Elmbridge, out along B4603, along the A40 into the centre of Cheltenham on dedicated cycle route.
Does that answer your question? I guess it probably does.
I think so. Yes, 21, 22 or end of, I can build up my stamina and everything else, and I'll be raring to go. I just got to win the election in May. That's the only problem.
Well, Boris has said he's going to come out and ride the route with Richard Graham when we get it open. So there's a high level of interest in the route, shall we say?
Okay.
Yeah, good. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, Gina, you got your hand up. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, Colin, we've gone fishing, and you're off the hook now. There's nobody else wanting to ask you any questions. So that's that done. So we'll move on to item 10, which is future meetings, and that's in the next council. That's on the 9th of June, the 15th of September, the 20th of October, and the 17th of November. I'd just like to take this opportunity as the chair to thank everybody for your time, officers and councillors, both district and county, for your time on this committee and for your questions. I think that we've come a reasonable way from where we were 3.5, 4 years ago, and we're now managing to delve in a bit deeper and to expand what we're doing. I'd also like to thank Kate as the vice chair of the committee for her help in individual meetings that we've had, to obviously steer ourselves and to make sure that we get officers' reports, and obviously Patrick and his committee for their input that they've given us from the morning. So just thank you very much, and hopefully see you in June. Speak to you soon. Cheerio.